Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be looking at popular error messages that you encounter on Power BI when you are managing your Power BI reports. The one that you can see on your screen is a popular one that arises when your refresh fails. So you get notified that the refresh that you've scheduled on Power BI service has failed. And as you can see, this error is descriptive. um, when you look at the data source error, it is saying that the bond column does not exist in the row set table. The table that has been affected is athlete. If you look at this part. So in order to resolve this error, the first thing you are going to do is to download the PBIX file to your desktop and open it. So this is the file that it's affected. Then go to transform data. Now you can see the athlete table that was mentioned in the error, and you can see the expression here itself. The column bond on the table wasn't found. This usually occur probably someone has changed the column title or that column has been deleted. So in order to find out at what particular point in your apply step this particular issue started from, it's advisable for you to just go back to the source. After the source, you can see that here there is no error message. Navigation, no error message. Promoted headers, no error message. Then change type. You can see that the error arose from this particular step. So in order to be able to resolve this error, you can see that when you go back to promoted headers and check the table, you can see that the bond date bond column has been changed to DOB. So in order to resolve this, what you're going to do is to go back to the change type, go to bond. You can see that the type was changed to any, and that is what was affected anyway. So what you're going to do is to change this to DOB, and you can see that has resolved the error. When you go down to this down part, also reordered columns. So the bond date was also reordered, then change that also to DOB. So we have a clear data set now. Then you can refresh and republish. When you republish it now, it can now refresh. You will no longer get that error. The next error we are going to be looking at is the system out of memory exception error. This particular error, one of the major reasons for this error is the size of the report. And one of the major ways to resolve this error is to try as much as possible to reduce the size of your report. And this can be achieved in several ways. The first thing I usually do whenever a report is handed over to me is to check the columns that were used for the visualization. Any column that wasn't used for the visualization has no business being in that report. If the column is needed in the future, we can go back to Power Query and add that column in the future. So what we are going to do for this particular report, we can see that we have just one visual, and the visual is using female, the gender column, as well as you can check the columns that we use: city column, gender, customer type, and total. So every other column in this particular table that are not currently being used in this visual has no business being in this report as it stands. So what I'm going to do now is to go to Power Query, transform data, super sales. So we have city, hold down the control key to select the columns that we need. Customer type, gender, and I think total this case. Yeah, total. Then we right click and remove other columns. So we have just four columns out of the several columns that we had before. You can see that size has reduced kind of. Then close and apply. That is one way of reducing the size of your report. Then another one is to try to moderate the use of calculated columns. Whenever you try as much as possible to use calculated columns only when it is the last resort. if it is something that you can create using a measure, use a measure. This is because calculated columns add to the size of the report. A measure is not stored in the report. It does not add to the size of the report. So whenever you want to add a column and you find out that that same column can also be achieved using a measure, go for the measure. It's also even advisable for you to take it as far upstream as possible. You can take it down to the Power Query aspect of things, or even far to the database. Do the calculation up there. It helps in optimizing your report. So in this case, now we have this particular calculation, current operating year, which is a calculated column. I also have it as a measure to demonstrate what I mean. This is the measure. So when you put the both of them on a table visual, for instance, let me just get a table visual here and bring that in here. I have opportunity name, current operating year, the measure, and the column. You find that they are both the same thing. They are both giving the same visual. So in this particular case, instead of using the calculated column, which I have done, I would rather go for the measure aspect. The measure is more advantageous here in the sense that it's not being stored in the data um, as part of this particular report. It is stored virtually, but the current operating year calculated column is stored in the report. So this is one way to reduce the size of your report. Another way to reduce the size of your report is to turn off auto date and time. For this particular simulation, we are going to be using the supermarket sales data, and we are going to need this date column for this particular data. So what we are going to do, just like I mentioned before, whichever column you now need, you can add them back. So I'll go back to the supermarket sales, the step before remove other columns, check the drop down. This is my date. I'll copy it, go to the remove other step and paste it there with the comma, then enter. So you can see that we have our date column back. Then close and apply. One interesting thing you will notice here is that there is an automatic drop down here, date hierarchy. What it actually shows is that Power BI automatically creates a date table for all date columns in your data. So imagine that you have different tables with different date columns in them. It actually means that Power BI is creating a date column for each, a date table for each and every one of these, because the author date and time is on. So what you're going to do in order to reduce the size of your report, because each and every one of these that has several date tables attached to them, is actually increasing the size of your report. So it's just for you to go to the files, options and settings, options. You have the current file and the global file. Under the current file, go to data load, time intelligence, turn off auto data and time. Okay. It's also advisable for you to do that for the global. It's actually doing that here. Now you can see that there is no more date hierarchy here. You can also go back and just do it for global. Global means that whichever report you are creating using this Power BI on your desktop, auto date and time for new files are turned off automatically. So Power BI is no longer creating date tables for you. So if you need to use a date table within your report, you can do that by creating just one date table. Instead of having several date tables for different columns, you can now have just one date table that you created, and you can account for the number of rows on that table. If after you have tried reducing the size of your report, you are still getting this system out of memory exception error, you should also consider upgrading your Power BI from 32-bit to 64-bit. You can go to the website. Um, you can see here that we have 32 and 64. So if you had installed 32, it's advisable for you to upgrade to 64 and also try. Then if afterwards you can reach out to the support if you are still getting the same error after you have tried these several steps. That is all for this video. Like and subscribe for more. Thank you.